Hello. I am going to be in Bermuda for the next 4 weeks, so I thought I would do some of my YouTubes outside and make the most of the lovely scenery. And today I'm going to be talking about imposter syndrome because I have really been going through it whilst writing my PhD thesis. So I thought I would share with you what my opinion of imposter syndrome is and some of the tips that I've been using throughout my PhD to really deal with it and to be able to focus on my work as well. So let's get to it. Hello. Yeah, so a bit of a different background to where I normally film, but I just thought, like, while I'm here for a bit of a long time, I may as well make good use of the scenery around me. So today what I really want to talk about is imposter syndrome, and this is really top of mind for me at the minute because I've been writing up my PhD thesis, and in the past few weeks, I've been really feeling, I think, the worst imposter syndrome that I've ever felt during my PhD. And the reason for this, I think, really is because these are my final PhD results, and every other assessment I've had so far, it's been, you know, some of my results, but I've always had, oh, and next I'm going to do this, and next I'm going to do that. Whereas at this point, it's this is it, this is what I've got, and I'm submitting that for my examination. I think that's what's given me the stress. And even though in a thesis you do talk about your next steps and what else you could do and what else you would have done, it's just that finalness of my results is really making me bring up all of this I'm not meant to be here, I'm a fraud type of situation. So what imposter syndrome is that sensation that you are not where you're meant to be, that you have somehow got here through a fluke in whichever position that could be. It could be academic position or in your job, and at any point you could be found out and called a fraud. So it's this sensation of, I'm really not meant to be here. I think we can really easily see the achievements of others, but we fail to recognize our own achievements, because once we achieve something, we normalize it. We think, well, that's normal, anyone can do that. But to get to where you are, you have achieved a lot. I think imposter syndrome is really prevalent in doing further study. So if you're doing a degree, a postgrad degree, and that is because the more you know about a subject, the more you realise you don't know. Well, that's definitely been the case for me. So when people call me an expert in neuroscience, that really clashes with my internal belief system, because I find that I know a bit about neuroscience, but there is so much that I feel like I shouldn't be called an expert on. Because I've been contending with these thoughts now for years and years, I have come up with a few ways to really tackle the underlying belief system of being an imposter and trying to recognise those thoughts, stop the feelings that come with them, and being able to still be productive and get on with my work. So I really wanted to share these with you today in case you've ever felt like this in any situation in your life. And hopefully this will enable you to be productive and move past these thoughts, because I don't think you can ever get rid of these thoughts. I think they will always come up, but it's your action that dictates how much influence they have over you. What imposter syndrome really is our reaction to certain thoughts. And these thoughts revolve around our ability or lack of ability. And it may not feel like a reaction because the feelings that come alongside these thoughts feel almost automatic, but that is just because of your brain's wirings. These thoughts will trigger a certain feeling, a certain sense of inadequacy or shame, and because of that, you will then feel even more of an imposter and feel like these things are true. So I think it's really important to clarify that imposter syndrome comes from our reaction to certain thoughts. And what that means is that we can have control over them. Imposter syndrome is not a permanent state, but a mindset that you can control. Many people suffer from imposter syndrome. The exact numbers aren't too clear. There was an article which reviewed some of these papers which tried to give a percentage of people with imposter syndrome thoughts, but it is believed that a fair proportion of people do have these type of thoughts at some point in their life. And certain groups of people are more likely to feel like they are an imposter. This is the case for people who identify as perfectionists. Now, perfectionism is again a state of mind. It is a set of beliefs. And what a perfectionist really is wanting to portray this idea that they are perfect, but really they are trying to avoid shame. So in this mindset, individuals will actively avoid doing things that they may fail at. And this is a really restrictive mindset to be in. I have really struggled with perfectionism for many years, and I am doing a lot of work now to come through that mindset, because I've realized that it is a set of beliefs that I hold and it is not who I am. But I think it's fairly obvious why perfectionists would feel like imposters, because they have this underlying sense of, I want to avoid shame, I do not want to look like a failure. So if at any point they have some self-doubt about their situation, they will then feel like they are frauds and they are not meant to be where they are. Another group of people that tend to suffer from imposter syndrome are experts. And I think this is really interesting because, like I said before, the more you know about a subject, the more you realize you don't know about a subject. So there are people who you probably look up to who also feel like they are imposters in what they do. Other ways imposter syndrome can crop up is if you feel like you have to put effort into a situation or ask for help, because some of us feel like if we have to put in that effort, that we are not naturally good at the thing we're trying to do. And I've definitely felt this in the past, that if I felt like I'm naturally good at something, I shouldn't have to ask for help at it, which, you know, defeats the purpose of being humans. Humans are lifelong learners, but this sense of vulnerability and having to ask for help can really make you feel like you are an imposter and you're not meant to be doing what you're doing. Also, if you compare yourselves to others around you, something that I call comparisonitis, if you're constantly looking at the person next to you and thinking, they are so much better at me than this, they are so much better at me than that, then you will feel like an imposter, because you are pitting your own abilities against someone else's, and if they work in a similar position to you, you will then feel like, I am not worthy of being here. Another really strong cause of imposter syndrome is if you feel like you do not fit into the norm or the environment which you are working in. For me personally, I have always felt like an imposter because of my accent. So if you're not from England, you may not really be able to tell, but I have quite a distinct accent from the standard BBC English accent. And that is because I'm from the north of England. So when I went to university, I was the only person in my course that had my accent, and I was surrounded by many people with Southern English accents, and this made me feel a bit like an odd one out. And because there wasn't anyone else who spoke like me, it then made me feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because no one else like me is doing this. So those are a few of the ways that imposter syndrome can be generated. Now, the biology of imposter syndrome is still fairly unknown. I'm trying to look into the neuroscience behind this, and if any research comes out, I would definitely let you know. There is a review with some theories out there if you are interested, but like I said, there's no proper research studies on what the biology of imposter syndrome is yet, but it will be really interesting to see if there is a biological underpinning for this. So now let me get to my tips. So for many years I have struggled with imposter syndrome, and it crops up normally when I'm having assessments. So if I'm doing a presentation or I have an exam, that's when these feelings really start to surface. And over time I have come up with a few techniques to help me cope with these feelings, to help me stop them really taking over me and convincing me that I am an imposter, and being able to do my work and do it properly. So the first thing here is that I always try to label my imposter syndrome thoughts. So as I said before, imposter syndrome arises from a thought of something like, I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud, I don't have the achievements to be here. And from that thought, I will have a feeling associated with that, which will normally arise as inadequacy or shame. And that is when I really want to hide myself and make sure I don't get caught out for being a fraud. So what I always try and do now is, if I have one of these thoughts, I try to act as an observer to the thoughts rather than letting that emotion flood in automatically. So for example, at the minute when I'm writing my thesis, these thoughts crop up a lot. And instead of being like, oh, I'm worthless, I don't feel good enough, instead I sort of sit back and think, wow, I'm having this thought here of I'm not good enough whenever I write my thesis. Why is that? And if you can rationalize why you're having that thought, it gives you some control over your reaction to it. So really trying to establish when these thoughts crop up, what these thoughts are and why you're having them can help you to get some control and ownership over those thoughts and stop the feelings arising which really make you feel like you shouldn't be there. It does take a bit of practice because the feelings that are associated with these thoughts do feel like they're really automatic, but when these thoughts come up, do try and sit back from them and think, wow, that's really interesting. Why is this thing making me feel like this? A good way to really flush out the why behind these certain triggers and cues is to talk about it with someone or to journal. Getting those ideas down on paper can really help you to understand why you feel this way when you do a certain activity, and it can help you to really process that and move forward and realize that this thought is not the truth. This thought is just a thought, and how I react to it is what is determining my emotions and sensations around it. So that is something that I would do. Label your thoughts and act as an observer to them, and try and not let that emotion rise to the surface as soon as you think you are an imposter. Something else which I think is really crucial if you feel like you are a fraud is to challenge yourself. So what is the thing that you think will expose you? What is it? Think of it right now. Say it out loud. You should do that thing. For me, this was presenting science to experts. In my department, we have to present our research every 3 months to the entire academic staff. And I thought the first time I did this, I was just going to be ripped apart and really exposed for the imposter that I was. I just thought everyone would think she knows nothing. Why did we let her in here? And when I went to do it, what happened? None of that stuff happened. I think we really build up this worst case scenario in our mind about how certain events will expose us. And if you do the thing that you think will expose you, you will see that the scenario in your head does not happen. It is never ever as bad as you think it will be. And this will convince your brain, hopefully, that you are capable and able. So I would say, try and do the thing that you think will expose you, and it will be fearful and you will be scared about doing that, but it will really, really help you to overcome these thoughts of you're not good enough. I always find as well that teaching others about what you know helps you to overcome these feelings of being an imposter, because it shows your brain that you do actually know a lot about your subject area. There are always people who are a few steps behind you in what you're doing, and if you can reach out to these people and teach them about what you know, you will then show your brain that you do have a good bank of knowledge about your subject. Now, because I'm a final year PhD student, it's actually the case that I have professors and group leaders come to me in the office and ask me about my subject area and for advice around that, because now I've got myself a reputation that I know a lot about that subject area, and it is really, really nice for me to have people come to me and trust me and ask me for my opinion on my subject. So try to teach others who are a few steps behind you, or even go and speak to professors who aren't really in your subject area and talk about your work to them, and this will really help to show your brain that you know so much and you are so worthy. This one took me quite a while to practice myself, but saying I don't know to a technical question that you genuinely do not know is fine. I have a really strong opinion on saying I don't know in other situations where you're just being indecisive, because I think that is really unhelpful. But if you're asked a technical question, information that you genuinely have never come across before in your life, just say I don't know. It is so much better than saying, yes, I know about that, and then having to try and stumble through a wrong explanation, because what that does is brings a lot of shame to the surface and convinces your brain that you are an imposter, because it's like, see, look, you don't know about that thing. How would you know about it if you've never come across it before? So saying I don't know really, really does help you avoid that feeling of being an imposter. And it also opens you up to learning new things. Humans are lifelong learners. We should be constantly learning. So by saying I don't know to someone who asks you something technical, if they can then explain it to you, then you've got new information there. So saying I don't know in this situation is completely okay. With imposter syndrome, it has in the past really, really affected my work. So something that I have done consistently now for the past couple of years is schedule my work and stick to that schedule. It has happened in the past where I felt so unworthy of my position that I have found it really hard to even work. And then what happens in that position is I'm sort of having a self-fulfilling prophecy of being an imposter, because if I'm not doing the work that I should be doing, then I'm going to be behind. I'm not going to know the things that I should know, and then I'm back to this position of I'm an imposter, I don't know enough. So it's really important to avoid letting that situation happen. So now what I do is I schedule my work, and then I act as an employee to that schedule. I pretend that this work has been designated to me by a boss, which is me who's setting the schedule, and it's like someone saying to me, okay, today you're writing results chapter 2, off you go. And I just do this in a completely judgment-free way. So if you act as an employee to this work, it really does remove that judgment element from it. You're not writing your results thinking, why did I do that experiment that way? these results aren't good enough, this graph is rubbish. Instead, you just do the work and you stop criticizing every single thing. Really taking out that emotion and that judgment helps you be productive. So I would say set a schedule and then act as an employee to that schedule and think, oh, I've been designated to do these tasks today, I'm going to do these tasks today. No drama around it. And that does really help prevent imposter syndrome from taking over and stopping you do your actual work. And the final thing I would say, which is really, really useful, is to talk to your peers and seniors about imposter syndrome. I can almost guarantee that most people on your level will feel like an imposter or will have felt like an imposter at some point. And what's even more confidence building is speaking to people that you look up to. It could be professors, it could be one of your seniors at work, just someone that you really respect. And I bet you they will say, oh, when I was in your position, I felt like an imposter. Or even now, at this high level I am at, I feel like I shouldn't be here. There are so many people that you respect, if that could be singers, actors, celebrities, professors, scientists, whoever they are, who will have felt like an imposter at some point. So just normalizing it and being like, these feelings are normal, I'm not the only one, can really, really help you to overcome this sensation of being a fraud. So they're just a few of my thoughts on imposter syndrome and how to deal with it. It really is just a way for your brain to keep you safe. That is what imposter syndrome is doing. Your brain is trying to be like, we want to stay in our nice little comfort zone. Let's not try and go further than we are because that is risky. So it is a defense mechanism of your brain to keep you where you are. And you can overcome it because you have achieved so much to get to your position now, and you have the control over your reactions to these thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this, comment below or catch me on social media. And if you're liking the channel, please feel free to subscribe. I will catch you next time.